moving forward in the agenda, we have communications. We don't have anything planned for communications.
Yes, we do.
Oh,
Sorry.
I stand corrected. There was an addition to the communications, a presentation by Ed Baum on the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Board. Maybe?
I got one.
That or Ed's going to read it to me.
Have two for the price of one. While Paul's distributing the report, let me note that we do this because according to the ordinance, we have to at least annually report to the city council, to the citizens, and to the planning commission. And this is the third of our reports. We've done the other two. Let me note that planning, as you well know, since you're at the planning commission, can be an inspiring, a complicated, a frustrating, and a strange process. I say strange because very few people have ever read the comprehensive plan. I know that Paul has, because he was on the comprehensive plan advisory committee when it was first started. I assume that Paula has. I'm not too sure about the other gentlemen here who've read this, but if you look at it, it's a rather daunting document. And so it sits on shelves most often. People don't really know what's in it. And they don't, especially, I would venture to say, although I could be proven wrong, that members of the Planning Commission do not, every time a new case comes before them, run to the planning document and say, how does this fit in? It probably, maybe on rare occasion that happens, but not very often. It is a complicated process and a complicated plan because there are so many bits and pieces. Cities rarely speak with one voice, and the process of developing a plan brings in a variety of voices, sometimes at odds with each other, and yet it tries to develop a sense of where you're going in the future. It is frustrating because no one really sees the future. The original plan was supposed to be up until 2020, and then we moved it to 2025, and yet things happen. Developers come in, developers leave. New businesses come in, new businesses leave. Subdivisions want to be developed or not developed. And you can't really control all of those things. So it becomes even though it is a written document and is approaching 10 years old in its basics, it has to change in some ways. And yet is inspiring because to a large extent it indicates at a particular point of time what the citizens generally thought of their future and where they wanted to see the city go. So if you read it carefully, you'll find all kinds of recommendations about the nature of the city and the nature of the places where we're going. The Comprehensive Plan Review Advisory Commission has spent 3 years thus far as its charge, which is to let people know how we're doing, because rarely anyone else is going to do that. The Planning Commission doesn't sit down every so often and say, well, this is how we've done this on a plan, and neither does City Council. So we have this special commission, which is organized to first identify ways to measure our progress, which was our first year. Secondly, to begin to establish the actual statistics which say how we're doing, which is our second year. And this third year to ask various people who have been involved in the plan or are affected by the plan where they think we should be going to implement the plan. And the report that you have before you is the result of our discussions with a number of people. If you look on page 4, these are the list of people we talked with this year in a series of meetings, getting to know how they have been affected by what the city is doing and where we're going. And then the rest of this document indicates sort of our summary. How does this affect the Planning Commission? Well, most of it doesn't, to be honest with you, because many of the recommendations are really in the purview of the city administration and city council. And yet, if you look through our recommendations, what is still to be done, there are 4 that specifically can be addressed by the Planning Commission. On page 5, it's a rather specific kind of thing, and that is the dealing with bed and breakfast in the city and ensuring that the city code sort of encourages them. And the city code is partly the responsibility of the Planning Commission, but also City Council, any changes in the code. On page 7, There is a reference toward the bottom, this is the next to last, what needs to be done. Update city codes to address energy efficiency, cluster housing, regulations, and other sustainability indicators. This is something that would definitely involve with or may even be initiated by the Planning Commission. On page 9, at the very bottom, page 9, the adoption of an historic preservation ordinance. This is something that has been talked about by the Planning Commission several times over the past 15 years, but we still don't have one, and it may be time for the Planning Commission to really look at a historic preservation ordinance. And then finally, and this is partly within the purview of the Planning Commission, the bottom of page 11, develop a housing plan that includes incentives for home ownership, etc. One could argue that according to the Ohio Revised Code, the major responsibility of the Planning Commission is for public buildings, public streets, public alleys, public facilities, and yet you are involved, in especially in the zoning code, with housing, and housing becomes an important part of what the city is and what the city does. So those are 4 specific areas that the Planning Commission could have an initiative or as major responsibility. But we do encourage you to read the document, because directly or indirectly, planning is your purview and what you do, and we're very pleased to present this report to you. I would be remiss if I did not thank the members of the Advisory Commission itself. They are listed on page 2. All of these people work diligently and hard, met quite often over the past 3 years, although not all have been on for all 3 years. But we expect to continue our work, identifying areas in which the city can continue to move forward. My last comment is, as I noted, the document itself has its basis in terms of the discussions in the city, the meetings of the then Comprehensive Plan Committee, meetings with the citizens, is 9 or 10 years old. Most of those meetings took place in 2001, 2002, 2003. It is generally noted by, and Paul can confirm this, that plans should be updated, if not revised, every 5 years. We've gone beyond that. And all of the city received a very nice plaque, which you can see in City Council, for having an excellent plan. It's time to see where we're going, and it may be something that the Planning Commission would like to take the initiative on, or City Council, or the mayor. But it's time to look at where we're going. There are aspects of what has gone in the city which are not contemplated in the city plan. The whole emphasis upon sustainability, environmental concerns are mentioned in the plan but are not really developed to the extent which they have been developed in subsequent town hall meetings and other discussions. So it's time to see where are we going now with the comprehensive planning process in the city of Athens. I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, first off, I'd like to commend your group's work on this report. In comparison to last year, this is a much more easily understood document that we can take something away from. I think it also has a lot to do with the complexity of the task that you set out last year as compared to this year. This one's a little more sort of oral history based with how you're conversing with various representatives and see what the needs to are, but it's something that the Planning Commission can easily take from and figure out a focus and how we can adopt this within our commission. So again, I do commend your organization's work. Other items, comments, questions people from the commission would like to bring forth?
Yes, thanks for doing a lot of the work, and I sat in on some of these, so I got busy on other aspects. I know we talked a while back about bed and breakfasts, housing stock, and when you talk about trying to develop a better range of housing stock, I know there's ordinance out there trying to put an overlay for home ownerships, but I don't know, I don't think it's really adopted that often. And I seem to recall we never really looked at actually legislation that would fit for a bed and breakfast, but I don't remember if we've got anything that would work or not.
We do. They are permitted by code, but I believe it's only in
R2s, R3s.
No, I think it's only Bs.
to be.
Really?
Yeah, which is the problem. Most bed and breakfasts are in
Are in
residential
residential,
neighborhoods, and I think we're allowed, or they're only in specific streets, East State, Far East State, Stimson, and Richland, or something like that. So we do have something in there. There was an ordinance I saw that was tabled back in the late 80s, I think, on bed and breakfast. I had a copy of that, which was essentially recommending that they be permitted in, I think, R2s and R3s. I can pull that out. I mean, there's best practices if the planning commission wanted to look at a zoning change like that. That's what we'd like to see done, is take a careful look at some of those ideas.
Right.
And I guess the other question I would have is, part of the commission met, I see Barbara Harris in here for the Ohio University off-campus housing, and of course OU Environmental Studies. How much input do you feel you got from the university in this interaction, I guess is the question.
Several of the members of the commission are related to the university indirectly because they're part.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true with virtually everything that happens in the city of Athens, because no matter how much we might want to mitigate the impacts, the university and the city are basically really joined together at the hip, if not the shoulders and the leg and a few other things. We did not specifically go to the university per se and ask them officially on anything. The people who came to the commission represented themselves and their positions, but it could not be classified as a university position.
Okay. And I'm aware of the fact that, it cost us almost more than $250,000 due to the last plan. I remember during being on the steering committee at that point, the discussion was we should be doing maybe a chapter a year or something like that was one of the suggestions. Considering that it ceases to be a comprehensive plan when you do something like that, what would you think would be the first step in terms of, besides spending $250,000 and hiring an outside?
It doesn't need to cost $250,000. I think there were a couple reasons we moved in that direction. We did not have a city planner could help guide the process. When the
Can I get a raise to $250,000?
when the county did its comprehensive plan, it did not cost $250,000.
I think it cost $25,000.
$25,000.
10 times less.
And that was because you had someone who could help guide the process. And while you may or may not want to give Paul a raise in order to accomplish this, I think we're in a better shape now for the planning process. The strategic plans of 1991, if I recall correctly, were done basically by, who was the group that did that? I can't remember. But it didn't cost that much money, but there was more emphasis upon what the city planning commission did. The comprehensive plan that we have here was a broader process. We tried to involve as large a segment of the community as possible, and I think we can continue to do that. You have to have people who are willing to work on it. And I think with the Comprehensive Plan Review Advisory Commission and other individuals, you have more of a, I call a base for people to work on the plan than we did in 2001. When we first started the whole process, actually in 1999, when we created the RFP committee, which I chaired, we didn't have that base. So I don't think it would cost anywhere near $250,000.
If I remember, there was discussion of the difference between a strategic plan and a comprehensive plan, with the idea that strategic was a narrower focus. I know since we adopted the comprehensive plan, we've had the pedestrian bike plan put together. Paul's working on a recreation campus plan. Would you envision doing a series of strategic plans to start it off and kick it off? Is that what would that be practical? I mean, again, I think at the time the concept thing was strategic plans go, narrow down rather than wide open. But
We make a great assumption and a hope that since there is a single planning individual now, we wish he had a whole office working with him, but at least there's someone who says, hey, this thing over here just doesn't fit at all. revise it. You have someone who at least has an overview of what the city is and where it's going. So when you have these different groups coming around, whether the Arts Commission or the Recreation people or some other group, at least they can say how it fits in. You have a document, a place where you can look and say, it just doesn't fit. Now, that doesn't mean it shouldn't fit, because as I said, things change. The environment changes, people's concerns change, the nature of your residents change. And so you might say, well, it didn't fit then, but maybe it should fit now. But you have an individual who has that overview, who can at least point out, this fits, this doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, should it become part of it, or should it be changed to fit where the city wants to go?
Okay.
Are there aspects of the earlier plan that you endorsed or put forth in the plan that today you might reverse or cause you concerns?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about it. I think there are parts that I wish had been strengthened. The environmental section, sustainability, as I mentioned. Transportation probably is one that didn't receive as much emphasis as it could have, especially since there are changes taking place. We have a go bus, and it worked out very well. But I don't think there's anything in the plan that I would say we shouldn't have done or we couldn't have done.
Well, for instance, like with the density issue, where I think maybe some people today are rethinking, the certain pockets of areas that have developed a lot of density, particularly around the campus area. And would that be something that people might want to rethink?
Well, the plan says we should have greater density, and I still think we should. I think the density issue around the university is one that is important. And the personal opinion, since I have no one else to refer to, is that a high-density zone from Mill Street to Stimson, that whole area, that should be a high-density zone. If you go back to, my senior moment, I've lost the name of the plan that Tom Hodson chaired, the Mill Street.
The Mill Street plan, yeah.
Mill Street
improvement
plan.
Yeah.
That talked about high density. And I think that's something that had been recommended to Planning Commission, that began to think, for example, should you limit buildings to 3.5 stories? Well, the whole River Park Towers is not 3.5 stories. The Mill Street apartments are not 3.5 stories. And yet, the university of those areas do not seem to be worse for having taller buildings. And maybe that whole area should be just simply designated as a high-density area and let people go up higher than 3.5 stories. That is something I think really should be considered, but that's my personal view, does not represent the commission.
My issue, of course, is the street parties and what has erupted and what we do, where we're concentrating a student population all in a certain area that has resulted in the proliferation of street parties, unlicensed and sanctioned. So that's a concern.
It's a concern.
And we have approved some, and I did want to state the planner does normally reference the comprehensive plan for projects. He's reviewed it and said, this fits in. For example, the most recent unit down there on the variance unit on Miller and Stewart. But again, that'll be an additional 85 beds and students in that area. But we had a good spring this year, so we hope spring's eternal. And
I would note that in that respect, there's a problem with Palmer Place in that whole area. And yet, River Park Towers, going up to, 7 or 8 stories, to my knowledge, has never had a problem.
Right.
I just can't imagine the vista, but that's just my personal opinion.
No.
To look down Mill Street and see.
You go to almost any big city, and you'll find tall buildings with lots of people in them. Even at Ohio State University, there are 2 towers. How many floors are in those 2 towers for residence halls? 10, 13?
Merrill Tower, at least 15.
At least 15. They don't have problems.
But don't you
So
get into the
simply having
viewshed
tall
problem?
buildings with high density does not itself create problems.
Don't you get into the viewshed issue, though?
Not as
You might.
much at that spot, just because ODOT took down half the hillside to put in the 33. But, you know what I mean, right up where the river park, I'm thinking.
Yeah. But anyway, that's...
Obviously,
It sounds like this is something we should discuss in planning.
It is, I think it's something that is within the purview of the planning commission, that's something you should be discussing. The whole question of where we go in the future. I'll give you a little story that Paul has already heard. When I first came to Athens in 1964, new professor at the university, and we were going to buy a rug. We were living actually at that time at what is now called River Park Towers, but when we're simply called McKinley. They were basically for graduate students and young faculty. It was a different character than it is now. But we needed to buy a rug. And at that time, there was Harris Furniture on Court Street. And we were walking down to Harris Furniture, and there was a man standing at the door who was, can't remember his name, but he was a salesperson, and he said, we were talking with him, and he said, see that woman walking up the street? Because he had been talking with her as we came down. And he said, you'll find in the city of Athens people who have an attitude such as hers. And her attitude was, this used to be such a nice town until the university got so big. Well, the university has gotten big. And that's something that we live with. And I think there are ways that we can live well with the university. And it's just for us and the university to find the way that those are. So that's my little story. And I wish you all success as you consider some of these questions. Historic preservation, high density, where the city is going from a planning perspective.
Okay, thanks.
There, comments?
Just one thing, I do occasionally go through and look at the comprehensive plan. It's a PDF file on the computer. When I have a question, I do a word search, so I don't have to go through the entire tome. But that way I'll pull out a half dozen things. If I say, put in parking, you'll get something.
Right.
If you put in, so if you have an issue, there's always that searchable PDF.
Okay.
If I could just add then, since the mayor mentioned it, you don't have to have this document sitting on your bookshelf. It is in a disk which is available from the service safety director or from the
It's on the city website, too. You
And it's on the
guys
website.
download it. Yeah.
So anyone could read it.
Is this
It is not something that will keep you awake at night, however.
That's true. Actually, the only thing I would like to do someday is take all those photographs, all the steering committee people and all the neighbor association and get that online. Just because at this point, they are 10 years old, and it might be a trip through memory lane on that one.
Is this report made available on your link?
It's on the city website in the documents under city planner.
Okay.
Yeah. It may still be on the front page in the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay.
Depends on how recently it's been updated with other documents.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you for your report.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ed.
Any other communication items? Report from our city planner and director of development code enforcement.
I just have two things, one of which is that I'm working with an intern right now. She's in our university's geography program. She and I are going to be working on an update. We're going to see how this goes, but back in 1978, the city they commissioned a project working with the Chamber of Commerce and some citizen groups of what was commonly called the Zarni Plan, which was a design plan for the court's uptown district, looking at it from a historic preservation angle. The gentleman who made the plan, Kim Zarni was his name. For about 6 months, I was trying to find a copy of this plan. Everybody kept referencing it who had a long memory, but nobody could actually find a copy. I finally tracked him down. He's an artist and designer, graphic designer in the Cleveland area, and I sent him an email and had a few phone calls. He was able to find his old partner who actually still had a copy of that plan. in pristine condition, and he sent it to me. So I have a copy of the plan. I'll actually make copies for all of the planning commissioners so you guys can see it. But it looked at, it's an interesting look at how Court Street looked back in 1978 for one, and how different it's changed now. And that even back in 1978, it wasn't some old-timey community, or old-looking place. Yeah, it looks a lot different now, and back then it looked a lot different than it would have back in the 1920s or 30s, even though those buildings are all coming up on 100 years or so. So I'll make copies of that, but long story short, this intern and I, she's going to be doing, she's going to take photographs of all of Court Street. I'm going to try to immerse her in historic preservation and what the National Registry and the Department of the Interior recommends, and we're going to kind of do an inventory of what has been updated on Court Street to see how it lines up with best practices in historic preservation. And then she's going to try to do some AutoCAD schematics of some conceptuals of what we could do with using historic preservation as a guide. So,
What became of the historic preservation? We didn't have the ordinance, but we had made the recommendation to...
I've been back to the drawing board on that probably about 3 or 4 times. I wanted to really get a tight ordinance.
Okay.
About 2 months ago, I did have another draft of it that the Ohio State Historic Preservation Office reviewed for me.
Okay.
And gave me a lot of feedback on some best practices that they thought we should have. Our comprehensive plan, it recommends an ordinance, but it also recommends that we apply for what's called a certified local government.
Right.
And so I got feedback from the state office saying, if you want to be a certified local government for historic preservation, these are other things you should try to include in your ordinance. So basically, I have a pretty good draft, and I haven't had time to sit down and really take a look at it again. So it's being worked on.
That's fine. Just
Yeah.
wasn't sure if the decision was made not to pursue it. So
I hope it hasn't been made. I'm still trying to pursue it. So
yeah, I wish you would have told me 3 months ago if that was the case.
the other issue or the other topic, next week I'll be attending the annual Ohio State Floodplain Managers Conference up in Columbus.
Okay.
Just learning some best practices and all of that, floodplain management. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Question,
Do it.
Regional Planning Commission, do you think that's in any jeopardy of disappearing or changing?
It's a good question. I don't
Okay.
know. It is a volunteer organization, I believe. And all the people that attend the meetings, we do it on a volunteer basis. It's a membership we subscribe to, so I'm not sure how that's going to play out. There is somebody has to handle, at a minimum, floodplain management and subdivision regulations for the unincorporated areas of the county. And I'm not sure where the county commissioners are looking in that. My position is that the county should have at a minimum a full-time professional planner on staff. As everybody knows, Bob Eichenberg provided a huge amount of information, knowledge, and guidance to people throughout the county when they were trying to do development, as well as do some comprehensive planning and emergency management planning, hazard mitigation for the county, and our wonderful bike path too. So,
I was just wondering if there'd be an impact we'd have to be concerned about. That's all.
well, our jurisdiction at the City Planning Commission ends at the 3-mile limit for subdivisions. So from that perspective, that's going to be business as usual. I don't think there's any way under Ohio Revised Code we could be requested to expand to that. I think that would probably be something we wouldn't want to get into anyway. We'd be doing a lot of county work at that point. So
Yeah, I mean, I think for us to function well, we need a dedicated city planner, and the county needs a dedicated county planner or regional. I mean, even if there were a regional planning office where, various counties would pool their resources together and there'd be multiple planners for those counties. I mean, I think something like that would work. I just don't see how someone in just the city's position can not only be responsible for this city, but the county, and then once you take that, you're basically responsible for each of the individual cities and villages inside of that county.
Quite a big chunk.
Not that I don't think you could do it, I just think it would last about 6
agree with
months.
you. I think we need more planning, not less. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would make that recommendation as
Okay,
well.
thanks. Just asking.
John?
I can't top that. Operation Clean Sweep is continuing, and we should be this week wrapping up our first swing through of actually walking just about every street in the city. And we'll start going through a second time, probably beginning next week. So, moving along well.
Okay.
You should have taken before and after photographs.
We didn't take a lot of photographs, we got a lot of records, though.
There you go.
So,
All right. Any questions for the planner, director of development? Thank you both. Opportunities for citizens to speak about items not covered in the agenda. Does anyone in our audience like to present any further information or ask any questions of the commission? Okay. Announcements and other business. As always, our first announcement is our next meeting is scheduled for August 17th. That's correct. There is no first week in August.
August 3rd is canceled. August 17th, we will be doing the public hearing for the bicycle parking recommendations.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that did proceed. So August 17th, same time, noon in this chamber. Other announcements?
Couple things. One is there's a public hearing at 2 o'clock here for the CDBG formula money up here just before my press conference. The other one is I just got a letter, notification from the Buckeye Hills, Hocking Valley Development District. They're having two meetings, one on August 2nd in Marietta, one on August 3rd in Logan. This is for Marcellus and Utica shale education, impacted communities. They have one session designed for community leaders and impact landowners, one designed for landowners. The presenter is Dale Arnold, Director of Energy Policy, Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. One in Marietta will be at the Knights of Columbus Hall, 312 Franklin Street in Marietta, as I say, August 2nd. Communities session is from 3 to 5 p.m. The landowners is from 7 to 9. The Logan one is in August 3rd, which will be, the city's going to be shut down for that day, or City Hall's going to be shut down for that day. But this one, I just jumped topic, I apologize. This one in Logan is at Lee's Banquet House, and that's spelled H-A-U-S, on 580 Radio Lane, Logan. Again, the hours are the same for community leaders. It's going to be 3 to 5. For landowners, it's going to be 7 to 9. And it's just to educate us on what's happening with the Utica Shale and Marcellus Shale drilling and gas well situation, which is coming at us. And again, you want to RSVP them at buckeyehills.org, and I'll let them know. So, just for information's sake.
All right.
I'm planning to attend. I think Paul Logue is planning to attend at least one of the sessions, so we can learn about it.
Okay.
And that's all I really have.
All right. Anything else? All right, disposition of a couple of meeting minutes. The first is June 1st, 2011. The mayor was absent at that meeting, is that correct?
And Harry.
And
So that's why we couldn't
silence
approve
in the
it.
vote, okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as they stand, that could vote on the matter, so...
Somebody move
I
it.
guess...
Second.
All right, I moved in my question, so there's a second, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and next we have July 6th meeting where I was not in attendance, so I won't even put forward the motion.
So I move that we accept the minutes of July 6th.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, at this point we are adjourned. Thank you for...